Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. My name is Emma.
And I'm James. We're here today to talk about something really special, something that touches all of us, no matter who we are or where we come from. It's the art of conversation.
Yes, conversation. It's one of the most important skills we use every day. But do we ever stop to think about it? Why is talking so special, and why do we need to learn how to do it better?
Exactly. We talk to people all the time, our friends, our family, our co-workers, but the way we talk can really make a big difference. A good conversation can bring us closer, help us understand each other, or even change someone's life.
That's so true, James. Conversations are more than just words. They're a way to connect, to share ideas, and to show that we care. Have you ever had a conversation that made you feel really understood? Like the other person was really listening to you?
Oh, yes, and that's such a powerful feeling. When someone listens and responds in a meaningful way, it feels like magic. But the truth is, it's not magic. It's a skill we can all learn, and it can make our lives so much better.
Right, and today we want to talk about how we can have better conversations. Whether you're talking to a friend, asking for help, or meeting someone new, there are ways to make the conversation better and more enjoyable for everyone.
Yes, and here's the exciting part. This isn't just about using fancy words or talking for hours. It's about the little things like asking questions, listening carefully, and showing interest in what the other person is saying. Those small actions can turn a normal chat into a great conversation.
Exactly. Sometimes people think that to have a great conversation, they need to be really smart or funny. But that's not true. The art of conversation is about being kind, being present, and making the other person feel comfortable.
That's such a good point, Emma. And that's what we'll be focusing on today, how we can all become better at conversation, no matter who we're talking to or what we're talking about.
But before we dive into the tips and tricks, let's talk about why conversation is so important. Why do we care about it so much? Why does it matter?
Well, think about it. From the moment we wake up, we're communicating with people. We might say good morning to someone, ask a question, or explain something at work. We use conversation to solve problems, to share feelings, and to make connections. Without good conversation, life would feel so disconnected, right?
Definitely, and good conversations don't just happen. It takes practice, patience, and sometimes a little courage. But once you get it right, it can be one of the most rewarding things. You can build strong relationships, solve misunderstandings, and even learn new things about yourself and others.
That's true, Emma. A good conversation can teach us so much about life. And that's why learning how to talk, how to listen, and how to connect with people is one of the most valuable skills we can have.
Absolutely. So, we want to share some tips with you today that can help make your conversations better and easier. And don't worry if you're still learning English, these tips are simple and can help you feel more confident, even if English isn't your first language.
Right, Emma? We're going to keep everything clear and easy to understand. So whether you're just starting or you've been learning English for a while, you'll be able to follow along.
And you might be wondering, why is it called an art? Why not just call it talking or speaking? Well, conversation is more than just using words. It's about how you use them, when you use them, and what kind of feeling you create when you're talking.
Exactly. Just like painting or music, conversation is something we can do creatively. It's not just about exchanging information, it's about expressing ourselves and connecting with others on a deeper level. That's why we call it the art of conversation.
That's a great way to put it, James. So, let's start by thinking about the basics. What makes a conversation good? What are some things we can all do to improve the way we talk and listen?
I think one of the most important things is listening. People often think that being a good conversationalist means being a good talker. But actually, listening is even more important. When you listen well, the other person feels valued and understood.
Yes, listening is key, and not just hearing the words, but really listening. That means paying attention to what the other person is saying, not just waiting for your turn to talk. When you listen, you learn more, and you can respond in a way that's thoughtful and meaningful.
Exactly. And when you show someone that you're really listening, they're more likely to open up and share more. That's when the conversation gets deeper, and that's when you really start to connect.
And here's a little tip for our listeners. When someone is talking, try to focus on their words and their emotions. What are they really saying? How do they feel? When you pay attention to both, it can help you respond in a more caring and thoughtful way.
That's a great point, Emma. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Asking questions shows that you're interested in the other person, and it keeps the conversation going. Plus, it helps you understand the other person better.
Yes, asking questions like, how did that make you feel? Or what happened next can show that you're engaged and curious. It's a simple way to make the conversation more interesting for both of you.
Absolutely. And remember, the goal of a conversation isn't just to talk. It's to connect, to learn, and to share. So, take your time, be patient, and enjoy the process.
That's right, James, and we'll keep talking about more ways to improve your conversations. But for now, just remember conversation is an art, and anyone can learn it with a little practice.
Exactly, Emma. Conversation is something we can all improve with a bit of practice, and it's not about being perfect. It's about being present and engaged. Now, let's dive deeper into another key element of good conversation's body language. Did you know that the way we move, our facial expressions, and even our tone of voice can say more than the words we're using?
That's so true, James. Sometimes people forget that conversations aren't just about what you say. They're also about how you say it. Your body language can show if you're really listening or if you're interested. And it's something we all do without even thinking.
Exactly. For example, if you're talking to someone and they keep looking around the room, what does that tell you? It makes you feel like they're not really paying attention, right?
Yes, and that can make the other person feel uncomfortable or like what they're saying doesn't matter. But when you maintain eye contact, nod your head, or even smile, it shows that you're present in the conversation and that you care about what they're saying.
That's a great point, Emma. So, for everyone listening, remember how you say something can be just as important as what you say. If you want to show that you're really listening, try to keep your body open, face the person you're talking to, and use little gestures to show that you're paying attention.
And it doesn't stop there. Even the tone of your voice plays a huge role in conversation. You can say the same words, but with a different tone, they might mean something completely different. Have you ever heard someone say I'm fine, but their voice sounds sad? You just know something's wrong, even though the words say they're okay.
Oh, absolutely. The tone of your voice can show if you're happy, sad, excited, or even angry. So, it's important to be aware of how you sound when you're talking to someone. If you want to show you're interested or happy, try to let your voice reflect that. A little bit of energy or warmth in your tone can make a huge difference.
Exactly, James. And for our listeners who are learning English, this is a really useful thing to keep in mind. You don't always need to use complex words to express yourself. Sometimes just changing your tone or using a smile can make your message clearer.
That's such great advice, Emma. So, whether you're talking in your native language or learning English, remember that conversation is more than just words. It's about how you use those words, your body language, and your tone of voice.
Yes, and speaking of using words, let's talk about one more important part of a great conversation: asking questions. We mentioned it a bit earlier, but I think it's worth talking about more because asking questions is such a powerful tool in conversation.
Absolutely, Emma. Asking questions shows that you care about what the other person thinks and feels. It keeps the conversation going and helps you learn more about the other person. It's a way of saying, I want to understand you better.
Exactly. And there are different types of questions you can ask. Some questions are simple, like what did you do today? Or how was your weekend? But if you want to dig deeper and really connect, you can ask more thoughtful questions, like what do you enjoy about that? Or how did that experience change you?
Right. Those kinds of questions make people stop and think. And when they answer, you'll often learn something new about them. It makes the conversation more meaningful.
And for our English learners, asking questions is also a great way to practice speaking. Don't worry about making mistakes or using perfect grammar. The important thing is to be curious and show interest in the person you're talking to.
Exactly, Emma. It's not about perfection, it's about connection. And when you ask questions, you give the other person a chance to share their thoughts and feelings, which brings you closer and makes the conversation more enjoyable for both of you.
Yes, and don't forget to listen carefully to their answers. That's what makes a conversation a two-way street. It's not just about talking, it's also about truly hearing the other person.
Absolutely. Good conversations are like a dance. You take turns talking, you listen, and you respond. It's a back and forth flow, and when both people are engaged, it feels natural and fun.
That's right, James. And speaking of flow, one last thing I want to mention is being present in the conversation. Sometimes, when we're talking to someone, we might get distracted by our phones, or we might be thinking about something else. But when you're fully present, when you're really there with the other person, it makes the conversation so much better.
Oh, that's such a good point, Emma. Being present is all about giving your attention to the person you're talking to. Put away your phone, stop thinking about your to-do list, and just focus on the conversation. It shows respect and makes the other person feel valued.
Exactly. And when you're present in the moment, you're more likely to have a deep and meaningful conversation. You'll connect on a deeper level, and both of you will walk away feeling understood and appreciated.
So true. I think that's really the heart of the art of conversation, being present, listening with care, and showing genuine interest in the other person. When you do that, you can turn any conversation into something special.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter who you're talking to, whether it's a friend, a family member, or someone you just met. Every conversation has the potential to be meaningful if you approach it with the right mindset.
Exactly, Emma. That's the beauty of conversation. It doesn't matter who you're talking to. Every conversation, whether big or small, can be meaningful if you put your heart into it. And speaking of meaningful conversations, I think it's important to talk about confidence in conversations. You know, sometimes people hold back because they're worried about saying the wrong thing or making a mistake, especially when learning a new language like English.
Oh, yes, James. Confidence can really make a difference. I know it can be hard for many learners, especially if they're afraid of making mistakes. But here's the thing, mistakes are part of learning. The more you speak, the more confident you'll become, and that's how you improve.
Absolutely, Emma. It's completely normal to make mistakes. I mean, we all do it even in our native language. The key is to not be afraid of them. Every mistake is a chance to learn something new.
That's so true. And you know what? Most people don't even notice the small mistakes you make. They're usually more focused on the conversation itself and the connection you're building. So, for everyone listening, don't worry too much about perfect grammar or vocabulary. Just keep practicing, and your confidence will grow naturally.
Exactly. And another great way to build confidence is by starting with topics you're comfortable with. Talk about things you know well or that interest you. This way, you'll feel more relaxed and the words will come more easily.
Yes, starting with familiar topics is a great idea. It's like practicing a new skill. When you feel comfortable, it becomes easier to take that next step. And the more you do it, the more confident you'll feel in different types of conversations.
Right, and don't forget that listening is also a big part of becoming a confident speaker. The more you listen to how others speak, the better you'll understand how conversations flow, and you'll pick up new words and phrases without even realizing it.
Exactly, James. Listening to native speakers, watching movies or shows in English, or even listening to podcasts like this one can help you get used to the rhythm of the language. And that helps a lot when you're trying to improve your speaking.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening right now, remember that every conversation is a chance to practice. It doesn't matter if it's a short chat with a friend or a longer discussion each time you speak. You're getting better.
Yes, every conversation helps. And speaking of practice, one thing that really helps with confidence is learning how to handle pauses or moments when you're not sure what to say next. Sometimes we all get stuck, but that's okay.
Oh, definitely. Pauses are totally normal in conversations, and they happen to everyone. If you ever find yourself unsure of what to say, it's okay to take a moment to think. You can even say something like, "That's a good question. Let me think about it for a second."
Yes, exactly. It gives you time to gather your thoughts, and it keeps the conversation going naturally. Also, if you don't know a word, don't panic. You can always explain what you mean in a different way, or even ask the other person, "What's the word for this?" It's all part of learning.
And you know what, Emma? Asking for help with a word can actually make the conversation more interesting. It shows that you're trying, and it often leads to more discussion. Plus, people usually appreciate when you're open about learning.
Absolutely, James. It's a great way to make the conversation more engaging and even learn something new at the same time. And it's so much better than staying quiet just because you're afraid of saying the wrong thing.
Right. Being open and honest in conversations is so important. It builds trust and helps the other person feel more comfortable too. You don't have to pretend to know everything, just be yourself.
Exactly. And when you're yourself, the conversation flows naturally. You don't need to force it, and it becomes more enjoyable for both people.
That's right, Emma. And another thing I think is important for good conversations is patience. Sometimes, especially in a language that's new to you, it takes time to find the right words or express your thoughts clearly. But that's okay. It's important to be patient with yourself and also with the person you're talking to.
Yes, patience is key. And when you're patient, you give yourself the space to think and communicate without pressure. That's when the best conversations happen, when both people feel comfortable and unhurried.
Exactly, Emma. And it's not just about being patient with yourself, but also with others. If someone is struggling to find the right words, it's important to give them time and not rush them. Conversations are a shared experience, and patience makes them smoother and more meaningful.
Yes, it's about understanding that communication is a process. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but that's perfectly fine. The goal is to connect with the other person, not to rush through it.
Absolutely. And when you give someone the time and space they need, it shows that you respect them and value what they have to say. That's what makes conversations special.
Exactly, James. So, for everyone listening, remember, conversations are not about being fast or perfect. They're about being patient, confident, and present. Whether you're speaking or listening, give yourself and the other person the time to connect. That's the real art of conversation.
Well said, Emma. It's all about being in the moment, enjoying the exchange, and learning from each other. And you know what? The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. Before you know it, you'll be having conversations in English without even thinking about it.
Yes, and that's the goal, isn't it? To be able to have natural, flowing conversations and to feel good about it. It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is that you keep practicing and enjoying the process.
That's exactly it, Emma. It's all about enjoying the process. Conversations are like learning any other skill. The more you practice, the better you become, and soon enough, it feels natural. But you know, there's another important part of conversations we haven't talked much about yet: asking good questions.
Yes, asking questions is such an important part of any conversation. It shows that you're interested in the other person and what they have to say. Good questions keep the conversation going and help you learn more about the person you're talking to.
Exactly. Questions are like little doors that open up new topics. And here's the thing, they don't have to be complicated. Even something simple like, "How was your day?"
Yes, simple questions are great because they're easy to ask and can lead to deeper discussions. And it's also good to remember that you don't always have to ask big or serious questions. Sometimes fun or lighthearted questions can make the conversation more enjoyable.
Definitely. Sometimes asking someone, "What's your favorite movie?" or "What would you do if you could travel anywhere in the world?" can lead to really interesting conversations. It's not just about finding out the answer, but about learning more about the person and their interests.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes a conversation really special, the chance to connect with someone on a deeper level. Asking questions shows that you care about what they think and feel, and that makes the conversation much more meaningful.
Yes, and it also helps to keep the conversation balanced. You're not just talking about yourself, but you're also showing interest in the other person. It's a two-way street.
That's so true. It's all about giving and taking. You share your thoughts and ideas, and you also invite the other person to do the same. And that's where good questions come in. They help the other person open up and feel comfortable sharing.
Exactly, Emma. And asking follow-up questions can be really powerful, too. When someone answers a question, instead of just moving on to a new topic, you can ask something like, "Oh, why do you feel that way?" Or, "Can you tell me more about that?" It shows that you're really listening and want to hear more.
Yes, follow-up questions are great because they dive deeper into the conversation. It shows that you're not just asking to ask, but that you're genuinely curious and interested. That kind of listening can make the other person feel heard and understood.
Exactly, and when someone feels heard, they're more likely to open up even more. It's like building trust in the conversation. The more you listen and show interest, the more meaningful the conversation becomes.
Yes, and that's the magic of it. Good conversations aren't just about the words we say, but about how we make the other person feel. When someone feels understood, it strengthens the connection between you.
Exactly, Emma. And this brings up another point: active listening. It's such an important part of any conversation, and it's something that people sometimes forget about.
Oh yes, active listening is huge. It's more than just hearing the words someone is saying. It's about really focusing on the meaning behind those words, paying attention to their tone of voice, and even their body language.
Exactly. And it's not just about waiting for your turn to speak. It's about being fully present in the moment and showing the other person that you're engaged. That could mean nodding, making eye contact, or responding to what they've said in a thoughtful way.
Yes, little things like that can show the other person that you're really listening. And when people feel listened to, they're more likely to keep the conversation going because they feel valued.
Absolutely. And that's what makes conversations feel alive. It's not just about talking, it's about connecting. Active listening turns a simple exchange of words into something much deeper, and it can make even the smallest conversations feel special.
Exactly, James. It's like the difference between just chatting and really connecting. When you're actively listening, the conversation becomes much more meaningful for both people.
Yes, and here's another tip for everyone listening. Don't be afraid of silence in a conversation. Sometimes we feel like we have to fill every second with words, but that's not always true.
Oh, absolutely. Pauses can be really powerful in conversations. They give you time to think, and they can also create space for the other person to share more.
Yes, silence doesn't have to be awkward. In fact, it can make the conversation even more thoughtful. It gives both people a moment to reflect and can lead to deeper insights.
Exactly. And sometimes, after a pause, the conversation takes a different, more meaningful direction. So, for our listeners, don't be afraid of those quiet moments. They're part of what makes conversations rich and rewarding.
Absolutely. Conversations aren't just about speaking, they're about thinking, reflecting, and sharing. And those pauses can really add depth to what you're talking about.
Yes, and I think that's a good reminder for language learners, too. If you're learning English and feel stuck in a conversation, it's okay to take a moment to think. You don't have to rush.
Exactly. Take your time. It's better to pause and gather your thoughts than to feel pressured to speak too quickly. Everyone appreciates thoughtful responses.
Yes, thoughtful responses show that you're engaged and really care about what's being said. And again, it's all part of being patient with yourself and with the other person.
Right? Patience is key. Whether it's practicing a new language or just having a deep conversation, it's important to give yourself and the other person the time and space to express themselves.
Exactly, James. And when you approach conversations with patience and curiosity, they become so much more enjoyable and fulfilling.
Yes, and it's all about making connections. At the end of the day, that's what conversations are really about, understanding each other and building those connections.
Exactly, James. That's really the heart of it, isn't it? Conversations help us understand each other better and create those connections that can last a lifetime. Whether it's a short chat or a deep, meaningful discussion, it's all about connecting on a human level.
Yes, Emma, and that's something really special. Every conversation, no matter how small, is an opportunity to learn something new about someone, to share experiences, and to build relationships.
Exactly. And I think one final thing to remember is that conversations don't have to be perfect. Sometimes we stumble on our words. Sometimes we forget what we were saying. It's all part of being human. It's those little imperfections that make conversations real and genuine.
Definitely. No one is expecting you to be perfect, especially when you're learning a new language. The important thing is to keep trying, to keep talking, and to enjoy the process.
Right. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become. And remember, everyone makes mistakes. It's how we learn. So don't be afraid to make mistakes in your conversations.
Exactly. It's all part of the journey, and the more you engage in conversations, the more confident you'll feel. Over time, those little mistakes will become less frequent, and the flow of your conversations will feel more natural.
Yes, and most importantly, have fun with it. Conversations are not just about exchanging words, they're about sharing moments, ideas, and feelings. It should feel enjoyable, not stressful.
Absolutely, Emma. When you let go of the pressure to be perfect and just focus on connecting, that's when conversations really shine.
Exactly. And for our listeners, whether you're talking with friends, family, or new people you meet, remember that each conversation is a chance to grow. Every time you speak, you're building your skills and making connections that matter.
Yes, and those connections can lead to beautiful friendships, opportunities, and experiences. So keep practicing, keep talking, and enjoy every conversation you have.
Exactly, James. We hope today's discussion has given you some helpful tips and ideas on how to improve your conversations, whether you're speaking English or any other language.
Yes, we hope you feel inspired to engage in more conversations and to embrace the art of communication. Remember, every conversation is a step forward, and each one is a chance to connect with others in meaningful ways.
And with that, we want to say thank you for joining us in this special episode. It's been such a pleasure talking about something as important as the art of conversation.
Absolutely, Emma. We hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. It's always great to talk about ways we can all improve our communication and make the world a little more connected.
Yes, and we hope you take these ideas and put them into practice in your daily conversations. Remember to be patient, be curious, and most of all, be yourself.
That's right, and don't forget, conversations are not just about words, they're about connection.
Exactly, James. So, whether you're having a long chat or just a quick exchange, remember to enjoy it. because every conversation is a chance to connect with someone in a meaningful way.
Well said, Emma. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Thank you, James, and to all our listeners. Thank you for being with us today. We're so glad you joined us for this episode, and we hope you'll continue to practice and enjoy the art of conversation in your own lives.
Yes, thank you so much for listening. Keep talking, keep connecting, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.